When you hear the word serial killer, what do you picture? A man, right? A shadowy figure stalking his prey, the nighttime predator waiting in alleys and dark basements. We imagine monsters, but always male. And yet, history has its exceptions. People who slip through our assumptions, people who shattered the mold. In this story, the killer wasn't a man hiding in the dark. She was a woman standing right in the open, by the roadside, her thumb outstretched for a ride. Her prey didn't think they were in danger. In fact, they thought they were helping her. But this woman would go on to become one of America's most infamous killers. Her name was Aileen Wuornos. Welcome to CrimeScopeUSA. Before we get into the video, do smash that like and subscribe button to help the channel. Also, don't forget to ring that notification bell so as not to miss any new videos from us. To understand how she got here, we need to go back. Aileen Wuornos was born in 1956 in Rochester, Michigan. Her childhood was not just difficult, it was catastrophic. Her father was imprisoned for sex crimes against children before killing himself in prison. Her mother abandoned her at the age of 4, leaving Aileen and her brother to be raised by their grandparents. But her grandparents' home was no safe haven. By her own accounts, she endured severe abuse and neglect during her childhood, suffering trauma at the hands of those who should have protected her. By age 11, she was already trading unorthodox favors for cigarettes, drugs, and food. By 15, she was pregnant. The baby was placed for adoption, and Aileen was cast out, left to survive on her own in the woods of Michigan. Abuse, abandonment, and trauma became the foundation of her life. And from that foundation, a storm was building. In the late 1980s, Wuornos made her way to Florida. She lived on the fringes, hitchhiking, drifting, and surviving through sex work. She met a hotel maid named Tyria Moore, who became her lover and companion. Together, the two lived a transient life, bouncing from cheap motels to abandoned homes, surviving off Wuornos' encounters with men. But soon, those encounters turned violent, and in 1989, the killing began. Her first known victim was Richard Mallory, a 51-year-old electronics store owner. In December 1989, Aileen claimed Mallory picked her up for sex, but instead of a transaction, she said he tried to assault her. Her response? She pulled a .22 caliber pistol conveniently hidden away in her bag and shot him, up to 3 consecutive times. Then she dragged his body out of the car, leaving his body in the woods. Now, Richard Mallory had a criminal record at the time, including a charge for sexual assault, indicating Aileen, possibly knowing this, intentionally tracked him down, kept tabs, stalked, and intentionally killed him. But when asked on this, Wuornos insisted she was defending herself. But the pattern that followed after this murder told a darker story. Just 6 months later, in June 1990, the body of David Spears was found. He had been stripped naked and shot 6 times. Spears had been reported missing by his fiancée only days before. Then, only 5 days after that, Charles Carskadden was killed. He was just 40 years old, a part-time rodeo worker on his way to meet his fiancée. Aileen shot him 9 times, leaving his body on a remote road. The sheer number of shots suggested not panic, but rage. In July 1990, the body of Troy Barres, a sausage salesman, was discovered. He had been reported missing after failing to return from a delivery route. Again, the pattern was the same: lured on the roadside, robbed, and executed. That September, police found Charles Dick Humphreys. He wasn't just any man. He was a retired Air Force major, a former state child abuse investigator, and a police chief.
He was shot multiple times and left still fully clothed, his car abandoned. Even men who had once represented authority weren't safe. By late November, Aileen had claimed her final known victim, Walter Antonio, a trucker, found nearly nude, shot 4 times. His car was dumped in a different county. By then, investigators were connecting the dots. The method, the stolen cars, the pawned items, all trails that would lead back to one woman. One by one, their names faded into headlines. David Spears, Charles Karskadem, Peter Seams, fathers, husbands, workers, all reduced to bodies in the Florida wilderness. Each time, Aileen claimed she acted out of fear, but police and prosecutors would later argue it was cold-blooded murder, driven by greed, rage, and a lifetime of hate.
It took too long for the police to realize it, but by mid-1990, they realized they had a pattern on their hands and a serial killer targeting men on the loose. The killings were all connected. Same caliber weapon, same circumstances, same highways, interconnected routes. But the biggest clue wasn't from the bullets. It was the cars. Wuornos and Moore had been spotted driving their victims' vehicles, pawning their belongings, even leaving fingerprints behind. Witnesses described 2 women seen abandoning stolen cars. The Florida Highway Patrol now had a manhunt, not for a mysterious male suspect, but for a pair of women traveling together. On January 9, 1991, Aileen Wuornos was arrested at the Last Resort biker bar in Volusia County. Police cornered her, ending her year-long killing spree. Tyria Moore was also brought in, but police offered her a deal: immunity if she could get Aileen to confess. Over the course of 3 days, Moore called Wuornos from a police-controlled motel. With every conversation, she begged Aileen to clear her name. The pressure worked. Soon, Wuornos broke down and admitted to the murders. On tape, her voice was flat, emotionless. She described shooting the men, but insisted, again and again, it was all in self-defense. In 1992, Wuornos stood trial for the murder of Richard Mallory. The courtroom was captivated, not just by the brutality of the crimes, but by the sight of a woman, a drifter, a prostitute, sitting at the defendant's table, accused of serial murder. The media swarmed, painting her as a monster, a predator, a woman who hated men. The prosecution highlighted her pattern: the stolen cars, the pawned items, the repeated killings. They argued this wasn't survival, it was murder for profit. The jury agreed. She was convicted and sentenced to death. Over the next 2 years, she would plead guilty to several more killings, each time receiving another death sentence. On October 9, 2002, Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison. Her final words were chilling, bizarre, and unforgettable. "I'll be back, like Independence Day, with Jesus, on a mothership." And with that, the life of America's most infamous female serial killer came to an end. Aileen Wuornos forces us to confront a difficult truth. Evil doesn't always come in the form we expect. We imagine serial killers as men in shadows, but Wuornos stood in daylight, with her thumb out, waiting for those who thought they were safe, and those who thought she was the one in danger. So the question remains, how do we define Aileen Wuornos? Was she a victim of a brutal past, lashing out at the world in rage and fear? Or was she, like so many of her victims' families believe, nothing more than a cold-blooded predator hiding behind excuses? Tell me in the comments, was Aileen Wuornos a victim or a monster? I'll be reading your thoughts.